Well, hello everybody, welcome to Red Toolhouse. For a small farm or a homestead, I think one of the best livestock to have is a pig. But unfortunately, there are a lot of misconceptions floating around out there about pigs and the difficulty in having them on your homestead. Today I want to take on what I consider the top 5 misconceptions and shut those down. So let's get into it. Well, first I want to preface this with a little disclaimer. When I take on these misconceptions, I'm taking them on from the basis of pigs on pasture or on woodlot. A lot of these misconceptions come from confinement pigs or pigs that are raised in small pens or sties. So keep that in mind as we get into this. Misconception number 1, pigs stink. So I hear this a lot, and I hear it a lot from people that really haven't been around pigs much. Usually they're regaling stories of their past where an uncle or so-and-so had a pig that he raised on a farm on a pen, or they used to live close to a pig farm, or they used to drive by a pig farm on the road and they could smell that very unique, very pungent odor. Well, I just want to say, if you and 6 of your closest friends were locked in a room for 6 to 8 months without the opportunity to shower and you had to urinate and defecate in that room, I would think people would say you stink too. So like us, pigs are omnivores. And generally, omnivores' manure smells stronger or has a more pungent odor than herbivores. You think about a dog, a cat, a pig, a human. Generally, that manure is a little more pungent. But when it comes to pigs, because of the history of raising them in confinement and that concentration of manure in a small area, that's where those odors really are magnified. And that's what people relate that to say, wow, pig is a stinking animal. So keeping that pig in that confined area generates a concentration of manure in urine. And that concentration, of course, builds up odor. Think about like your crazy aunt that has 20 or more cats. There's a unique smell in her house, right? So the way to tear down that misconception is to put a pig where it belongs, out of a confinement area into a much larger space where it can move around. It will spread its manure around throughout the pasture and not have that strong concentration. I rarely ever have any notice of a pig smell on our farm, even when we had 30 head. If they're managed and moved around well, there's no odor. So I want to do a quick shout out to today's video sponsor, and that's DXZtoz. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But they sent me this articulating industrial borescope. And when they reached out to me and said, hey, Troy, we think we'd like to send you a Boroscope. I'm like, I've always wanted to have one of those. So this is, for those of you not familiar with Boroscopes, this is not a home colonoscopy kit. This is an opportunity with a camera and light on the end of this articulating arm here to be able to investigate some key areas. Allow you to look in areas that you're not usually able to access. So you think about plumbing, think about cable chases in the wall, think about mechanical needs. It's going to allow you to look down in those areas and look for damage or misplaced items without having to tear a bunch of stuff apart. The neat thing about this device is that it has a full color display, has the ability to capture still images or record video. It has a dimmer switch for the light on the unit itself. And the very end of the scope is adjustable up to 180 degrees by turning the knob on the side. The unit does take an SD card, so you can store your files on the unit and access them whenever you need to. Another neat feature is the screen, which is pretty much the brains of the operation, can be easily removed, and it has a rechargeable battery. You just simply plug it into a USB port and you've got it recharged, and you can keep that screen maybe in a more protected area while the rest of the device can hang out in your toolbox. This is going to be very handy on the homestead as we work on some of the mechanical issues I'm having with my old tractor. I got to track down a radiator leak. But it'll also help you find that pesky 10mm socket that you dropped when you're doing some mechanic work. So if you want to learn more, just check out the link below in our video description. All right, let's get back to our video. Misconception number 2, a pig is a filthy animal. Now that kind of goes in line with what we were just talking about with they stink, but there's just general misconception that a pig by nature is a filthy animal.
Want some bacon?
No, man, I don't eat pork.
Are you Jewish?
No, I ain't Jewish. I just don't dig on swine, that's all.
Why not?
Pigs are filthy animals. I don't eat filthy animals.
Yeah, but bacon tastes good. Pork chops taste good.
Pigs sleep and root in. That's a filthy animal. I ain't eating nothing that ain't got sense enough to disregard its own feces.
Pop culture has, of course, helped continue that misconception. So I'm sure, as most of you know who watch my channel, that a pig lacks the ability to sweat. They do not have sweat glands. So in order to cool off, they have to find a way to reduce their body temperature, either through coming in contact with water or mud. That's the term wallow, right? They find a place to wallow in. They cover themselves in mud to help dissipate heat and water to help evaporate some of that heat away. So when a pig gets hot and needs to cool down, it's going to try to create a wallow. It's going to try to find an opportunity to get covered in mud or water and able to cool down to obviously protect its health. In smaller confinement situations, unfortunately, the pig doesn't have much room to look around. It doesn't have opportunities to seek out the ideal spot for a wallow. And sometimes it doesn't even have access to moisture. So unfortunately, in situations, the pig will go to its urine and say, well, this is the only moisture I have access to be able to cool down and obviously keep from dying. One other interesting thing about a pig when it's in confinement is very similar to a cat in the fact that it will pick a spot within a small corral, and that's where it will go to urinate or defecate. When it's looking for an opportunity to cool down, it may see that area and say, well, that's the only source of moisture that I have access to try to cool down. It's not that a pig really enjoys wallowing in its own filth. It may be that's the only option it has. I've documented multiple times here on our channel where our pigs will find springs or seeps, and they help me identify places where moisture is coming out of the ground that I may miss and not be aware of. It's in their nature to create a spot for their own safety that they can go to cool down when they overheat. So it's almost like creating a safety blanket for them. If they're in confinement, then they're going to find whatever they can to produce a wallow to help themselves cool down. So by nature, a pig is not attracted to its own feces or its own urine. Now, in full disclosure, I have seen my pigs, specifically my sows, when they have a nice pool of water to wallow in, sometimes they'll stand up and urinate in that. And I'll give them some grace on that because I attribute that to the same experience I have when I step in the shower and that water first hits my back. I have this immediate urge to pee. So a pig by nature is not inclined to return to its feces or its urine and in a sense to dwell in that or to enjoy it. Usually they're only returning to that out of necessity to try to keep from dying from heat exposure. The third misconception, pigs are aggressive or mean. Now I think again, culture, society, TV, all of those things have really helped promulgate this misconception.
You do wish to stay. Well, we have just a job for you.
And all there is he.
Pigs by their very nature are not aggressive animals. However, they are protective. A sow is going to be protective of her piglets. A boar may be protective of his sow when she's in heat. So just like any animal, there are times that aggressive nature can be realized simply because of a situation where they feel they're in danger or something they're trying to protect is in danger. I think any animal in the world can show tendencies of aggressiveness depending on the circumstance. TV's added to this when you see the old westerns where the person's dealing with the aggressive pig in the pig pen, or, hey, we got to get rid of some bodies, so let's throw the bad people or the people we're trying to get rid of into the pig pen and they'll take care of all the evidence for us. And then on social media, see some of these wild boar hunts where these guys are hunting with bow and arrow or even hunting with Bowie knives. And they're taking on these wild boars, and the wild boar comes out of the bush and takes him out at the knees because he's fighting for his life, obviously. Quite frankly, I don't really blame him. So that representation just kind of adds to the stigma that, well, all pigs must be extremely aggressive and ready to kill you at any moment. The fact of the matter is, however, domestic pigs, especially heritage pigs, are really quite chill. They're just hanging out, enjoying the situation. If they come up to you, they're not coming up to you to be aggressive. They're coming up to you because they want some ear scratchings or they want some belly rubs. Now, when I had two 600-plus pound boars, I had to give them the respect they deserved, but when they'd come up to me, they weren't coming up to scrap or to fight or to bite me or eat me. They wanted to get some affection. I just had to be careful of the fact that a 600-pound animal with 2 big hooks growing out of its face, if he decides to spin around or do something, turn unexpectedly, then there's a chance I could get injured. But both of those boars loved to have, scratchings behind the ears, and they were just like puppy dogs. They'd roll over and let you rub their belly. And the thing I find fascinating about a pig when there's potential for aggressive behavior is that they give you plenty of warning sign. I call it the Harley growl. So they sound like a Harley Davidson motorcycle. When they're making that noise, it's giving you plenty of warning to say, hey, I'm kind of ticked off, and you may not want to get up in my face. I see that the most when we're gathering up piglets for castration. Usually the sow is very protective in that situation, but she gives me plenty of warning sign and lets me know with the sound she makes. Now pigs, just like any other domestic animal, can have aggressive tendencies reduced even greater the more time you spend with them. Think of picking up a stray or feral dog. It's going to be more aggressive to you until it gets used to you. When it comes to pigs, that's why I like to hand feed my pigs daily versus having access to these big bulk feeders. That gives me daily interaction with them, so they're used to human presence, they're used to my smell, they're used to me being around them, and that reduces potential for aggressiveness even more. So by nature, a pig is not aggressive unless you take him off. Misconception number 4, pigs are dumb. Now I'm actually surprised at how often I hear this, that people think pigs are dumb, and I think that comes from, pardon the pun, ignorance on their part. They just haven't been around pigs long enough to be able to figure out that's not true. When people initially see pigs, they see a large, bulky animal that spends most of its time with its face in the ground, and they think, well, that's just a dumb brute beast. But the more time you get to spend with a pig, especially out in a pastured setting, the more you get to see just how intelligent they are. One thing I still find fascinating, even after 10 years of dealing with pigs, is to watch a sow build a nest for farrowing. When given enough room and enough resources, that sow will be meticulous in preparing the ground, finding that ideal spot, will prepare that ground to make the bowl, and then we'll go around and picking the most ideal material to come back and line that nest and make a really neat area there to have her piglets. Pigs also have incredible memories. Sometimes that memory is too good. When they figure out exactly where the electric fence wire is, and they've been able to commit it to memory, that'll stay in their mind for a very long time. Even if you decide to move the pasture or you move the fence line, they remember, this was the spot. I'm not crossing this line. Sometimes that works to our benefit. Other times it's a disadvantage if you're trying to move your pigs around a lot. Now, granted, pigs don't read or write or speak in articulated sentences, but neither do some of the people that Kelly and I went to high school with. But I think if you spend enough time with a pig, you'll get to see not only their personality, but their intellect. In fact, when it comes to livestock, I think they're one of the smarter animals. If I had to make a list of things that I think are dumber than animals, I would say probably sheep, chickens, rabbits, and Polaris owners. Misconception number 5. Pigs are hard to contain. Well, this final misconception, I think, is really relative. It depends on the amount of work you put into it and the time you put into trying to manage your animal, just like any other livestock. People say, I always hear horror stories of pigs escaping or pigs tearing everything up. While pigs can and will be very destructive, I mean, if you're born with a shovel on your face, have a super low center of gravity, and have all that torque, kind of sounds like my first girlfriend, then you would be destructive as well. The issue, however, is just having the right infrastructure in place and keeping a pig where you want a pig to be is quite simple. Properly built electric fence is the key. In our situation here, we've discovered that one single strand of electric wire, about 12 to 15 inches from ground height, is all we need to use to keep pigs where they need to be. That electric wire, however, has to be energized and it has to be potent. we've discovered here that for our pigs, we need 3 kilovolts or more to be able to keep those pigs where they need to be. So that's an investment of a proper sized energizer, proper fence techniques, and ongoing maintenance to make sure things are in place. Because of a pig's intellect, it will quickly learn the location of the electric fence, and it will build a very strong respect for that electric fence and stay far away from it. So generally, pigs aren't going to keep testing a fence or trying to break through it like you see horses or cattle do sometimes. That electric fence for that pig is more of a psychological barrier. They won't get anywhere near it. In fact, in our situation, the breed stock that we've just recently retired, they knew so well where the electric fence was. I had the fence unplugged in their paddock for over 2 months, and they never left. And when it comes to keeping a pig where you want it to, it really comes down to basic amenities as well. A pig wants food, a pig wants water, and a pig wants some place to get cool, that wallow, mud, water hole, whatever. If it has those things, it's not going to spend a lot of time trying to find a way to bust out in order to find those things. So if you provided the basic things a pig needs to survive and thrive, then there's no reason for them to leave. So if any of the things I've mentioned today have kept you from wanting to add pigs to your small farm or homestead, let me encourage you to reconsider. A pig, when managed well, can be an incredible addition to your farm. They're not only a great source of protein, they can help with land management. I actually did a whole video about that. They can be a great source of entertainment and provide clean family fun for everyone. Well, I hope you consider pigs. Thank you all so much for watching. I pray you have a good week. Take care.